I actually thought about this panel, and I actually mentioned it to Chris, because I thought rather than have myself talk to you about numbers, which can get pretty boring and staid, it's better to hear from guys like Johan and Stuart and Michael, who've been incredibly active in Canada and have raised money, have sold companies, and not just in specific areas, but also the nice thing is Johan's based in Montreal, so he can offer us some interesting views from a Montreal perspective. Stuart from really, well, multiple places in Canada, and also the experience of selling a studio to the likes of Electronic Arts, where Michael was actually convinced a lot of people to do that deal.
So, guys, don't be depressed here. Last year, I gave 3 strangers in a PowerPoint slideshow $5 million, so it can happen.
In Vancouver as well. In Vancouver,
of all places.
Yeah. So I'm going to take just a couple of minutes. I think a lot of you guys know these individuals probably on a personal level as well. But Johan is one of the founders of Cloudcade that released a title called Shop Heroes, which is performing quite well in the charts. And has a long history of being in the industry from THQ that he could also offer a little bit of background on. Well, yeah, let me know if I missed something there.
No, that's good.
Okay, good. What I'm going to do, and then I'll probably make a little bit of an intro, is can you offer, I think it would be great for some of the audience members, your experience of the transition from being at a large, kind of corporate company such as THQ, and then having the opportunity to set up your own studio, and then going through that fundraising process. What were some of the challenges of being a Montreal-based studio, and raising money from a large Asian player?
Right. So, just very quickly, coming from a sort of environment where big studios rule, which is a little bit of the setup in Montreal, where you have players like Ubisoft, about 3,300 people within a block. Warner is probably about 500-600 people. It's just big studios altogether. But what's really cool about that is the pedigree that they've actually shaped. And we saw it firsthand when we set up THQ Montreal. We were able to recruit really senior, top-end guys without a tremendous paycheck. We don't pay a lot. How much?
Yeah, but you got governmental support.
So in PEI they pay a lot. So the cool part about that is that you can create a very compelling business proposal to the likes of and when we started out THQ, for example, we went through. Montreal was part of the entire restructuring of the company. It was a little sad. We went from 16 studios to 8 studios, and Montreal just kept absorbing the work. We hired in 18 months about 200 people. It's very few places in the world where we can do that. So coming into an environment like Ubisoft, you have to ask yourself what you want to do and what you want to try to do. And what the cool thing at Ubisoft at the time was that they were trying to make indie games. They have several initiatives inside of Ubisoft, and all of them are announced, and really cool projects. But how do you make an indie game inside a massive corporation like Ubisoft? And we actually tried to do similar stuff at THQ. We were working on a free-to-play game, and I mean, at conception, we had 30 people. Like, it's not, it wasn't really matched up properly. So to go back to the opportunity of creating a small studio in Montreal, you have all the talent, you have the capacity to even at the very basis, you're able to put together a team that can help you create the first pitch deck, help you create the vertical slice, and help you create all the call them little tools that you need to go and fundraise. And it's very easy because you can just show the previous games they have worked on. So in the case of Cloudcade, the actual first round was raised on the back of my partner's previous games. We literally showed the catalog and say, this is what we did, and in this particular game, it's Flash-based games on Congregate. And that became the sort of stepping stone on showing what we could do.
So would you say it was your track record? It was yourself.
Absolutely.
It was obviously the other senior guys in your team, and is your track record.
Sure, absolutely. So there's no. You talked about risk in your previous slides, and I think we checked off every single box. There, at the very least, they would get a team that. They could be an acqui-hire, could be we could go and be pawned off anywhere if we failed. Now, we kind of knew or had a recipe for this game, and I'll credit my partner with that. Like he is the creator of Shop Heroes, and just seeing what we were able to do. Like we spent about 5 months just making the game fun. Like no KPIs, no analytics, nothing. Like we broke every rule in like how to design a free-to-play game, but that's because we knew. Just based on that experience, and I often say that Shop Heroes was built up to launch in September 2015 on experience and intuition, and today we're refining it with metrics and KPIs.
Great, Stuart. You have a couple of things that you can allude to. So
Okay.
not only did you have the privilege of selling Byte to
It was a
Electronic
privilege.
Arts, right?
Yeah.
I think you were more excited about hanging out with Michael.
Yeah.
But also, sure. But actually, what I think would be really interesting is also talking about Icejam, which is obviously your new studio, and obviously raising that from VCs. So you have two things you can allude to, and maybe what might be really interesting for the audience is a PEI based studio. What were the challenges in selling that, or what was attractive enough for EA to acquire you, and then having had that experience, did that enable you, because you had the track record, to then go out and raise money from VCs?
Okay, sure. In PEI, there's no option but to be a small studio. So per capita, though, I mean, we have the most game developers in the world, probably. But we developed a studio.
Can I quote you on that?
Yeah, everything here is a fact, I'm going to say. So.
Kind of like the Leave campaign for Brexit.
Yeah. Oh.
I had to put that in.
Yeah, that's right. So we founded the studio to do as much as we could, make great entertainment. And at the time, so I'm just going to go back just a quick overview. In 2004, the video game business was really, everyone told me was impossible to get into, except for maybe mobile, because all those games are crap. And we thought, well, if there's only crap, that we can't do too much worse than that. And we started specializing in mobile, making original games in 2004. We ended up doing a lot of work for hire. And
So how did you find people that actually knew anything about mobile?
we hired them from the UK. So the UK was going through a recession and losing their games funding.
That's right.
At the same time, and we told them that they could live by the beach and buy a house for £70,000, and they're like, I'm in.
And have a lot of lobster.
Have a lot of lobster, and we got a 50% labor rebate on every one of those guys.
That's amazing. 50% labor rebate, right?
Yeah, and it was a straight rebate. So, I mean, I'm not natively from PEI. I'm from just outside of Toronto, but I moved the business there to de-risk original IP. We wanted to make our own stuff, and the only way you could do that without really any VC in mobile at that point.
At that stage, yeah, sure.
Yeah, was
because back then no Canadian VCs were investing at all.
No. That's right.
And there was no Asian publisher financing.
No, there was no. Yeah, there was. It just didn't exist. So, fast forward, we did some products that were hits. We did The Simpsons Tapped Out, and I don't know how much money it's made now, but a lot. And so we sold.
Might say about 300 million.
300 million. Okay, but that is another fact right there. Then, and we also prior to that though we did NBA Jam for EA, and that was ROI point of view was a really great title for them as well. So it was natural that that transaction happened, but it happened really on the back of our original game, which was Trade Nations.
Right. I remember. Yeah.
And Trade Nations was loved and adored by the people who owned, by Gracie Films, who owned the Simpsons license and wanted to have a game made. So it was really, at the end of the day, it was an original game that motivated everything. So after my extensive non-compete, I started to compete. And I put the band back together.
Stayed long enough.
Yeah, that's right. They stayed long enough. Everyone was happy. And so I pulled 22 guys back out of EA. And
We're 22.
yeah.
Okay.
They were mine first.
So okay, so you waited. Okay, gotcha.
So I waited the appropriate amount of time, and legally, and but we had this vision to make great mobile entertainment based on what we call the idea of connected reality. So it's not just we want to make a game or we want to make Clash of Clans plus, hamsters. We want to make a whole new vertical in games, which is games driven by what we call playable data.
So I'm just a little conscious of the time, and I do want to get a couple of people to answer questions out there. So I'm just going to
I'll fast forward to the raise.
Well, yeah. So if you wouldn't mind, please.
So we raised money from a VC, non-game specialist VC, who had never made a games investment before, based on the track record of the team, and on the fact that it's not just a game they're investing in, but it's what but they see it has value beyond the gaming sector, certainly in big data visualization, and there's room for other kinds of exits. So that's how we were able to do that.
Right. So it was really based upon team, track record, the fact that you'd already sold to EA. So a lot of the points that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right about all those points.
Yeah. Michael, I think you can probably allude to a number of transactions you've been involved in.
Actually, if I could, first thing by hands in the audience, how many people here are in free-to-play mobile? So keep your hands up for a sec if you are. How many want to stay in free-to-play mobile? Okay. So you like what you're doing. You enjoy what you're doing, and you want to keep doing it. Shum had a bit of a depressing start here a little earlier here. Just want to let you know that really, I want you to take money from NCSoft, take as much as you can. I want you to take that money and make life-changing wealth so that you can go do what you want to do and make creative and interesting games or other things and kind of change the world. So have hope. There are people who want to give you cash. You just have to come to us with the right goal, story, pitch, everything else. It is possible. It's not all hopeless, but it is a bloody red ocean in free-to-play mobile right now. And think about this. A venture guy, an institutional investor, and I did 10 or 12 years of this before I went to do personal investing. Then I ended up the number 2 M&A guy for Electronic Arts. Then on my own again with, and then with NCSoft. Look, if you come to us and say, I want to make the next Clash Royale with Marvel or DC or something like that, we're going to tune out, right? Creative, something new. A venture guy is measured on his returns. We have to compete, institutional investors have to compete with and outperform the S&P 500, the stock market. Do I give you $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, or do I stick it in Apple or Netflix or something else that's a little more liquid? You have to have a pitch, a story, a rationale for us to give you that cash, such that we're going to take the risk on you, lock our cash up for a number of years, and hopefully get it back out. That is a pretty high bar.
I'm going to ask then, in the presentation, were there any of the criteria that I selected? Are there certain? Would you agree with? I mean, because pretty much Johan and Stuart sort of agreed to largely, to some extent. Would you sort of agree or disagree?
I agree with everything in your presentation. And if I want you all to have money, that may mean you have to adjust what you're doing. If you want to stay in free-to-play mobile and you want to compete with the big boys, if you want to target something that's top 25, top 50, top 100, you better be able to raise that much money required to do that. When Shum and I started doing this, when I started interacting with Stu, $500,000 development deals, $1 million deals were okay. I don't see anything now without a 2 or 3 year development cycle, $5 to $7 million of funding required just for the development. Some companies I know are saving $20 to $40 million for the first year of marketing in UA. to get a title up there. If the numbers work, they're just going to pour it all in and lock up their position on the charts. It is a tough world to be in, and if you're a smaller private company, if you need to raise 20 or 30 or 40 million dollars based on what you have today, we're basically going to own your company, right? So if you want to compete directly in this world, you better be prepared to kind of pull out the big guns to your development cycle, think about the live ops afterwards, all the different complications around making a sustaining title that lasts 4, 5, 6, 7 years. If you don't want to do that, or if you don't think you're able through the structure of your company to do that, think about where else we're investing. An early stage investor focuses on what they call like a holy trinity, or at least a number of them do. Management, market, technology. Great management teams, teams that can pivot on a dime, teams that can adjust with the changing dynamics of a market. Market. A leader in a small but rapidly growing market. Because when the market is discovered to be a real market, the big guys will come in. And those small leaders who are able to kind of defend their position, they will sustain when the large guys come in, and that's a good position to be in. And then lastly, technology, competition, differentiation, barriers to entry, some unfair competitive advantage that you will have to block out everyone else from coming in. This is what we're looking for from an early stage where we're investing, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million. A defensible position, a blue ocean, not a red ocean. Keep that in mind. Out here today, I still see a lot of free-to-play mobile, kind of 20, 30-man studios, an idea that will take $2, $3, $4 million. It's really not that interesting. I only saw a few people actually packing Samsung gears around here and doing the tests, which I thought was pretty interesting. When I was at E3 a little back, there were a whole lot more demos in that way, more on the high-end immersive VR side of things as well. Think about where the future is, and it may or may not be VR. Many of us do not know whether VR adoption will happen in any reasonable period of time or not. But think about the world at large, competitive dynamics, and how and why we would give you cash.
No, thanks for that. I mean, this is Vancouver, so I'm curious because you have invested in a studio in Vancouver through NCSoft. What did you? I mean, you said, basically, really
three guys,
a concept,
and a PowerPoint slideshow.
But
who were those three guys?
That's my point. You know who those guys were. Could you please maybe elaborate on?
How many of you are from Vancouver? So some of you may know these folks. They came out of EA. They went to form a studio called Exploding Barrel Games. Kabam bought Exploding Barrel, turned it into their Vancouver mobile studio, the teams behind Fast and the Furious 6 and Marvel Contest of Champions. We all know for Kabam, Marvel Contest of Champions has been their big success in recent times. This team, similar to Stuart, did their job. At some point in time, they fulfilled their commitments. They left. They may have had a non-compete or not for some period of time. Time passes. They fulfilled their obligations, and let's say they want to go back into the games business. They went back in, and we gave them $5 million to reform a studio, about 25 folks, to go out there and do interesting things. They had credibility. They'd done it before in free-to-play mobile with licensed IP that was interesting, and were able to do something with that. And they had good credentials, good reputations, and so we gave them the cash sight unseen. Now, a lesson learned from that was literally a year and a couple of months ago. We invested in them on a self-publishing model. $5 million, go make your game, go launch it yourself. What do we all know today? Not enough money, not at all. So they partnered, and they partnered with one of our Korean compatriots, Nexon, to publish their first game because they need larger marketing reserves to go out there and go launch the game and then spend money on UA and other things. Again, quality of team, first and foremost, the talent. We're looking at the talent. Can you make something amazing, creative, different, that will ultimately make us money?
Oh, thanks. I'm a little conscious of time, so I'm gonna ask Johan, what are some things you would offer the audience, other than obviously what we've discussed, in terms of how to impress upon whether it's VC or institutional investors, and from your experience?
I think one of the really big key things is to be super humble and very very clean in what you do. I've seen a lot of pitches, a lot of really, how do you call it, extrapolations of numbers, for example, that once you start backing it out, makes no sense, and you end up losing credibility with stuff like that. The other thing is obviously there's a certain amount of salesmanship and showmanship when you make a pitch. But at the end of the day, these guys will do their due diligence. They will dig in and they will find out what's actually inside that box. And at that point, it comes back to all the same things that we talked about before. Like it's what you're able to do and what you're actually able to deliver. So one thing that I actually was missing from your slides is execution. That's really, you can have all those things, but if you're not able to actually pull the trigger on all of these things, and at high speed, because it moves really fast. I actually read about the Exploding Barrel deal, and I was extremely surprised that NCSoft would let them do the Nexon deal. I thought that was really cool. Like I literally, I'm like, all right. Like that's a massive dynamic shift. If I look at something like that, it would ever happen with somebody like Ubisoft, where it's very close and very, I guess in a way, narrow-minded. So I think that would be one of the really big things to take away. Is always have that humble view on things, and when you're able to, when you do get the opportunity to really pitch something, to have all those things, all the ducks in a row, be really prepared for all the tricky questions, and that you'll get from guys like Michael, for example, which is very appreciated when it's spot on. And I think, and you could probably agree, like you guys can cut through the bullshit pretty quick. That's that's my. I guess I've seen that side of the story as well. So yeah, just be clean.
Thanks, Stuart. Some food for thought.
Parting words. When you're shopping an idea, you need to listen, I think, or the game developers need to listen. If your baby gets called ugly, you can learn from that.
That's nice. Yeah.
It's a very good point. Michael?
Again, I'll just leave it with there is hope. It's not dark. It's not easy to raise money, and it shouldn't be. Because if you can do something interesting with it, you will make life-changing wealth. You will change the world. And honestly, we'd all be happy to let you do that if you can.
So, sorry, Johan?
No, actually, one thing ties back into talking about Canada and Vancouver and Montreal and PEI. One thing that is really cool is how the government's supporting the development of what we do with tax credits in PEI, Montreal, Vancouver. It allows us to take a tremendous amount of risk. And I think, I mentioned this in the Pocket Gamer article a while back, I think it makes for a really interesting investing environment. Like you literally have the government coming in and taking on a huge chunk of risk when you're creating stuff. So we really have no excuse not to innovate and not create. Like we don't need to do another match 3. Like we can make the game we want to make, and I think that's really cool. They got Canadian Media Fund as well. I mean, these tools are unreal, and I've never seen it anywhere else, not to that extent. So that's really, if you've done your homework properly, it shouldn't be any games out there that are ugly, in my opinion. Does that make sense?
So just to summarize, if you're humble, if you're clean, if you sprinkle a little bit of showmanship, and if you listen, then there is hope to life-changing wealth.
Yeah.
But
the ocean is red.
The free-to-play mobile ocean is red. Come on, mobile VR, immersive, something else. Look, we just actually invested in a mobile VR ad network. Why, of all things, would I invest in a mobile VR ad network? So back in 2010, I was at EA, and the light's on, so hopefully I don't get sued for this. EA in June 2010 was all in on premium iPhone games and iPad. They believed this was the future. You could charge $15, $16 for a game. We all know where the world went. It went free to play mobile. So in late 2010, EA was frankly out of position in terms of business strategy. They did not have a lot of free to play mobile development design studios. And they're like, go out there and call them up and go find them. Go to New Toy, go to Backflip Dragonvale, go to Supercell, go to somewhere else, bring them in. Sure, I brought them in, or I tried to. You know what? It was the infrastructure players. It was the Tapjoys, the Chartboosts, and others who were able to show me who could change their mindset from a designer standpoint to adjust their minds for free-to-play mobile design, who could adjust their mindset for free-to-play monetization. The infrastructure players led me to who some of the good studios would be. In fact, it was Tapjoy, one of the Tapjoy founders, who said, you know, we've got this awesome new game coming out called Trade Nations that we're integrating into. It's made by a company called Z2 Live. I call it Z2 Live. They answer some questions in a way I like, some questions in a way I don't understand, which led to the fact that actually these guys did Trade Nations with Z2, and so that's why things went this way with Simpsons Tapped Out. But they showed me the path. I don't know what's going to work in mobile VR content right now, but I know that this could be a large market, and I'm going to have some people, ideally myself and others, track where this is going to go. Use kind of the longer value chain, the nth order derivative, to find out where interesting opportunities may be. You know, back when free-to-play PC was really starting off in a bigger way with Riot Games, League of Legends, and Wargaming, World of Tanks, I go to the payment providers, the prepaid card guys. Who's spending the most on the prepaid cards? Who's doing digital payments? Are there any other folks? Will that lead to high-res with Smite MOBA or other things like that? Will that lead to the next, you know, leading League of Legends or World of Tanks type of a company? So that's why I invest in this company. There are interesting new markets to go into. You're not just constrained to free-to-play mobile. You're not constrained to console or PC. There's a whole wide world of opportunities available.
I think we got time for actually a question. So are there any questions from the audience?
Perfect.
Wow. I think we did a good job, guys. Great. Well, if that's that, then I think, yeah, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.